All right. Good morning, Bruce. Good to see you.
Morning. Great to see you, Joel.
Bruce Strom from God. I was going to say Administer Justice, but what's the current name? Because there's been a merger here.
Well, it's true, but it's actually gone back to Administer Justice. Gospel Justice
Okay.
Initiative was the national movement and Administer Justice, but they've merged and we're now just Administer Justice.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, listen, we're, as I shared with you, doing some just short introductions to the Chicago Fellowship about how all of our connected nonprofits are doing. And I know a number of guys have asked me specifically about you. So let me start by just asking you the simple question: how are you and your family? Where are you, and what's your just current immediate situation?
Yeah, thanks, Joel. And I think it's so important that we touch base with people. We just finished a great compassionate care campaign where we were reaching out to volunteers, donors, and above all, our clients, just for that very question. My wife and I are blessed. We have twin sons who are, sadly, they were seniors in
Mhm.
college at North Park and at UIC, and it's kind of sad to see their senior year finish this way. And I'm sure there are a lot of people like that. So we kind of grieve the ending, even though they're staying connected and they're at home now, and we love having them at home. They're healthy. My wife is healthy. And so we're blessed to have the extra family time and really appreciating it.
Good. Well, that's good to hear. Certainly, that everybody's healthy is top of mind concern, I think, for most people at this point. We're about 6 weeks into the shutdown here in Illinois. So as people are thinking about where we are in this. So Administer Justice, you've got a core staff, and then you've got this national network. What's the kind of current reality for you? Are you able to continue to responding to needs with the network of attorneys, or what's happening like during this place where nobody can meet face to face?
Yeah, Joel, I've been so encouraged by lawyers who have stepped into this gap, recognizing in some of them, their main practices are slowed down a little bit. They know that the needs, we serve low income populations, and so they are always the first to get and the hardest to get hit whenever there's a downturn. And right now they are just experiencing all kinds of panic and concern. Many of them lost their jobs and they're trying to navigate that crazy unemployment system, or they just have all kinds of fears. Many of them are getting taken advantage of. Many of them are trying to figure out what's the tax payment that they're supposed to be getting. How can they do that? A lot of legal questions in this time, and we've been able to go virtual. So we have a virtual support team that's a lawyer and what we call client advocate. That person brings the spiritual social dimension, so helping connect them to social resources if they need food or shelter or other things, and then certainly connecting and praying with every client and being able to share the hope of the gospel during this difficult time. And it's a beautiful opportunity in times of crisis when people are asking, where is God? How can God allow this to happen? Does he really care about me? And that we've been able to see many clients come to faith in Christ because of this situation. So I would never wish COVID on anything, yet God is not absent in the midst of times of trouble. And we've seen him moving in the lives of people that are now part of his kingdom for eternity. And so we're really grateful to be there on the front lines.
That's great. You were saying when we were talking earlier that the top need in general that your attorneys are often addressing are sort of surrounding questions that people have and often about their family situation. How has the COVID crisis affected that? Like, you just mentioned the tax returns that people are trying to figure out. What are a couple of other things that you see people dealing with? And is there any difference between sort of pre-COVID and now in terms of those subjects?
Yes, a big difference pre-COVID and now. I mean, now it is jobs. It is how do I navigate unemployment, and can I get unemployment? And what's the extra $600 payment? Do I have to do something special for it? And really, if I can't get through, is there a way? Those questions are probably the number one question that we see. But then there's also other just family things. You know, how do I take care of my family? There are practical issues. How do I get that tax payment that's coming for people who now don't have anything? That $2,400 plus $500 for each dependent, that's real money. That's helpful. But if they moved
Yeah.
or if they never had direct deposit, they're trying to figure that out. So we're helping them navigate that. And then within families, the challenge, and Joel, this is my great prayer. I was just talking with our chief judge out here last week, and sadly, people think the courthouses are closed. So we were talking about how do we reach out to victims of domestic violence, because they've seen a 50% decrease in the courthouse of people coming in for orders of protection. And we know for a fact that there's an escalation in violence with the shelter in place. And we know now that it's been announced that we're just halfway through it in Illinois, what you just said, we've got another 5 weeks. That's going to be worse. That's going to be the next wave of things that we see of people who desperately need help. And what do? Where do they go? They're afraid to leave homes, yet they can't stay in them. And we want to be that place, and we're starting to do some public service announcements. We're working with the courts to do that and other judges to try to help people know that we're a safe place that they can talk to, and our attorneys will help them get out of that situation right now and provide protection.
Yeah, boy, that just seems like a critical thing. I think, a lot of us that are working in these distressed neighborhoods where the pressure is so high, where domestic violence is so high, we know the health crisis is like top of mind, and then the economic crisis is right on the heels of that. But there's this hidden piece around mental health and
Right.
the kind of violence that happens inside the home that is so frightening to think about, and such a critical issue to be praying about. And I really, really appreciate such a practical response. I can tell you, I would love to circulate, if you guys do some kind of video announcement, I think lots of ministry leaders in the city would be well served, and pastors, to have those, that basic information. So the other question I wanted to ask is just thinking about long term. I know for all of us as organizational leaders, it's hard to think very far ahead, but we are 6 weeks in, so we sort of know a little bit anyway what the last 6 weeks has looked like. And as you said, now we know we've got another 5 weeks. We kind of know what that looks like. And I think most of us are beginning then to think, okay, and then what after that? Like what is this crisis doing to the nature of the work that we do as we begin to think 3 months, 6 months, a year out, whatever that time frame is? How are you thinking about that, the impact to the work that you do, the importance of it, the shape of it, those kinds of things as you look forward?
Absolutely. So my board just met last Saturday, and we talked through that very issue, and we see a coming wave of bankruptcy. That will be an area that we're going to lean into, both for small businesses, and we do work with small entrepreneurs and with individuals, because we want to be able to minister in that space. All of our things are gospel centered, and so how do we bring still the hope of God's love into these dark situations? So we're going to be moving in that direction to be able to have greater capacity to help people through that process. For many of them, it's a grieving. They feel like they did something wrong, if their business or their small entrepreneur thing that they started is going under. But these are God's circumstances, right? They didn't do something wrong to get here, but with this long shutdown, and maybe if they don't get certain help, they just aren't able to make it. So we're looking forward to ministering in that regard. From a larger systemic basis, I'm working with courts, because we do that too. And I think there can be a benefit to the whole access to justice problem in America. And that is, the number one problem is people can't afford lawyer fees. 1 in 3 Americans cannot afford a lawyer. The high cost of lawyers is just out of reach of small entrepreneurs, of individuals. And by having the court systems go to more video meetings, which they're doing right now, you save a lot of time of lawyers that travel back and forth to court and sit there, and they charge you for that. I think that there's great opportunity to cut down on that significantly and move to this kind of route that the courts are learning works. And that's my hope. So I'm encouraging courts even now to continue that post-COVID, to really reduce fees significantly and help more people be able to afford lawyers.
Those are both fascinating, issues that'll come through the pipeline as a result of this. I totally agree. We've got a young lady in Louisiana who's trying to get her license back in the city of Chicago, and she's had to travel back and forth, a couple times. Boy, with that, and she's got 3 small children, right? So boy, would that have made the process simpler for her and more navigable. So that's a fascinating insight. Well, hey, as we wrap up, I just want to give you an opportunity to tell us what, from a need standpoint as an organization, what are a couple things that are top of mind, and then be sure to tell us how guys can reach out to you.
Yeah, amen. Thanks, Joel. So prayer is number one. We all know that prayer changes things, that God hears our prayers, and we need that. We've had 2 staff members who have lost parents to COVID. They've died. We
Wow.
have others that are, in fact, one of my staff members was just tested over the weekend because she's got COVID symptoms. And so, we're praying for safety for our people. We're praying for just all of those that we're serving. When you're front line and you hear just the mass of tragedy, that can weigh you down. So praying for all of our volunteers that are in that, asking for that. Specifically, we have technology. Probably like a lot of not-for-profits, we're usually behind technologically, and we really are praying to upgrade. So we're starting next week, there's this Giving Tuesday Now, that campaign you're probably familiar with, that they're doing on May 5th. And we're hoping to be able to raise $30,000 so we can upgrade our technology to be able to continue to do this. One of the other benefits is being able to reach people who otherwise would not be able to access us, but through technology they could. So that's one of our specific needs that we have, and that we're praying that God will provide, and I'm sure he will.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
So best way to get a hold of us is administerjustice.org. So all one word, administerjustice.org. And Hope, we're starting a May Justice Roll campaign in the month of May. If you go there, you'll learn different ways that you can learn more about God's heart for justice, how you can practically be involved. And there's multiple different ways. And I'd love for people just to even sign up for a newsletter, keep informed of what God is doing to advance his kingdom of justice and righteousness on the earth.
That's great. And you have capacity for additional volunteer attorneys, I assume?
Absolutely do. We'd love to. We have several hundred volunteer attorneys. We could field 1,000 or more.
Wow.
So I hope that more attorneys will step into this space, and others. We need other volunteers too. So check out our site.
Now they can do it from home.
Yes, that's right.
All right, Bruce, good to talk with you. Thanks so much for sharing. We certainly will be in prayer, and we'll get the word out for you.
Thank you so much, Joel. Be blessed. Thanks.